Operations Committee meeting. This is day 3 of a nice 40-day legislative session. We're here for one short order. My name is Frank Ginn. I chair the committee. I want to introduce everybody to Miss Karina Edwards, who is my new administrative assistant this year.
Appropriate date for us to move towards. So, Mr. Chairman, What I'm doing in acting on this, in the timeline we're acting under, is A, the direct order of a federal judge, Eleanor Ross, from the Northern District of Georgia, to act on this by the 10th, which is today. There's been an agreement by the plaintiffs and the Board of Elections. The 22nd is the appropriate day. So we are moving this forward without rushing, with great deliberation and thoughtfulness. This map is a product that's been worked on really since the order came down on the 14th of December to comply with all the provisions of her order, and put something before this legislature and the Cobb County that we can be proud of, that meets our Voting Rights Act obligations and other provisions that were specified by the judge. There are the comments that were made about it. But this map accomplishes that, and if it pleases the chair, glad to walk through some provisions, some specific things we looked at in addressing the judge's concerns that are captured in this map. I can go through this as quickly or slowly as you like, Mr. Chairman, but that's kind of the framing of the issue. Before I move forward, I just want to see if there's anything else the chair wanted to add.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. Said if I can, I want to see how many people are signed up on that sign-up sheet you have, young man.
Can I sign up real quick?
You go right ahead, and then just pass the sheet up here to me. I want to see how many people we got interested in talking. I will tell you that I know that some of our members have obligations that they had committed to before we rushed to have the committee meeting this afternoon, and because 5 o'clock was our only opportunity. I want to be respectful of their time. So our goal is to get in and out of here by 5:45. So if I can get that coming towards me, just carry it up here, please. Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Chairman, as we're proceeding,
I've got 4 people that are signed up to speak.
Okay.
So if you can limit your comments to the over the next say 5 or 10 minutes at the most.
You got it, Mr. Chairman. We are, as we know, the Senate's a separate co-equal body from the House. The House members from Cobb County have rules that apply to their process. That's been raised before. Our process is one in which if there's 4 of the 6 senators from Cobb County, if there's 4 or more on a map, it goes through the uncontested bills and resolutions process. Before filing the bill, sought the signatures. Not to say that I won't get support from those senators, but it wasn't immediately forthcoming. So having worked on this, having shared this information with our Cobb legislators early Saturday morning. We had a hearing Monday morning, or had a meeting of the Cobb legislators, discussed the map in great detail. Took 45 minutes of questions and discussed those back and forth. Had another public meeting yesterday, also called by our delegation chair. We spent more than an hour and a half, about 2/3 of which was focused on this map and this plan, to specifically discuss among our members those issues. And what I bring before you today is something that's been discussed extensively. Obviously, there will be some that think we ought to, follow some other process in presenting this. But what's before members today, again, is a plan for the Cobb County Board of Education. What you see in the middle of this plan, if you can see the map to my left, your right, you see Cobb County's boundaries. The white area in the center is the city of Marietta. You may or may not know the Marietta city has its own city school system. So the area that's represented in the center of the county is represented by Marietta City Schools. The colored areas around the county, those 7 colored districts, are the proposed districts, the 7 districts for our Cobb County Board of Education. Our Board of Education has 7 members, 4-year terms, and the 7 members elect a chairman from amongst them to serve as chair for a 2-year period. That's how that process works. Consistent with the judge's order, what you see is a plan that complies with the Voting Rights Act. I'm going to see, I've got a pointer. Of our 7 districts, what you see, and again, the colored districts are what is proposed. These dark lines show, I added this for purposes of context, Mr. Chairman. These dark lines show the lines of the existing districts from 2012, sort of the baseline from which this map is being presented. Again, those are the districts that were in place before 2022. The 2022 map is embroiled in litigation, so this 2024 map is what you see in these colored masses here, but it's relative to these lines. So you can see, this District 3 line complies very closely to the existing lines. And I'll start there, Mr. Chairman. Of these 7 districts from 2012, and again in this plan, there is one district that is a majority black district under the Voting Rights Act. District 3 in 2012 was a majority black district. It's continues to be a majority black district, and the lines of that district are very close. We had to make a couple changes to maintain population balances. But District 3 is largely maintained here, and that's the only majority black district that's required by Voting Rights Act across Cobb. Overall, the population equalization is strong across this plan. Historically, decades ago, these districts needed to be plus or minus 10%. That was narrowed to 5%. And in recent years, we've tried to get these plans under 1.5% to 2%. This plan is a total deviation, district to district to district. The total deviation of this plan is 0.84%. So the spread is very, very narrow from district to district. So from the perspective of proportional representation, this plan is very, very tight, very, very close. Working through other mandatory requirements in the plan, there's a list of mandatory criteria, and there's a list of what we call preferred criteria, best practices that are not strictly mandatory but that we follow. So criteria 1, complying with the Voting Rights Act, it does that in District 3. Criteria 2, equalizing population, it's less than 1% net deviation across the map. All geography within the Cobb County School Board is included here. We have contiguous districts. The only non-continuity you see here is islands that are created by the annexation of Marietta over the years. So those are sort of mandatory islands, but there's no other islands in this anywhere in these maps because being contiguous is a requirement. Also, there's no incumbent pairings. All of the incumbent sitting members of our school board have their own districts. There's no pairings made of incumbents. And then lastly, as we talked about, the requirement to initially pass this into law by January 10th, not possible. An agreement's been put in place among the plaintiff and our Board of Elections for January 22nd. I don't believe that's realistically possible either. That wasn't ordered by the judge. Those were the members so the judge is probably acted and approved on that. So those are the mandatory criteria. The preferred criteria, Mr. Chairman, splits of precincts. Of the 160 or so precincts in Cobb County, what's just happened to this map? Okay. The 2012 baseline plan that you see in these dark lines have 22 split precincts. We actually reduced that to 9. There's out of 165 precincts here with all these jagged lines, there's only 9 split precincts in this current map, moving in a very strong direction in terms of reapportionment principles. Census-defined places, cities, 2012 baseline has 4 census-defined places that are split. This has 5, close to the same. The only difference is the city of Kennesaw has a almost non-contiguous area to the east of I-75 here that's not contiguous, but it's a real strange connection to the city. So this is essentially substantially the same as the previous map. Last 2 things, Mr. Chairman, the preservation of the core. One of the reapportionment principles is preserving the core of the districts. The 2022 map that's in the courts moved 36% of the citizenry of Cobb County into different districts. That was one of the things the judge raised, was that was a large number that was of concern. In drawing this plan, even though we have population shifts across our county, we lowered the 36% relocation of folks from district to district down to 23. So there was a significant drop in that, again, consistent with the reapportionment principles. And then lastly, the compactness standard. If you look at these black jagged lines, this is what the compactness looked like of districts before. You can see District 5 before was this. Now District 5 is a very simple core. District 3 was stretched, District 6 was stretched all along Cobb County, literally from way down here in the south of almost the southern edge of Smyrna, all the way up to this other corner of the county. What we could do is we consolidate District 6 here, District 2 same. So the compactness of this is available to you. I'll just leave this. There's a little worksheet. The top is the 2012 benchmark plan. You can see these standards of compactness. There's 4 different industry standards that are recognized. The 2022 plan, you can see this under litigation. You can see standards are better than both the 2012 plan and significantly better than the 2022 plan. So by every measure of compactness that courts look at, and there are 4 separate industry recognized measures, every single measure is improved in this map over the 2012 baseline map that we started from. So with that, Mr. Chairman, a lot of work's been put into this map to meet the standards of the courts. I've got spreadsheets that could drive you nuts if that's what you want to see. I don't think you do, but glad to take questions if there are any.
Thank you, Senator Setzler. Said so it looks like you worked pretty hard to get a concise map. Are there any questions from the committee members? Seeing no, oh, wait a minute. Senator Esposito, do you have a question?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry. What's your number?
It doesn't have a number? You had it.
You're on. All right. For you Georgia fans, Nick Saban is retiring.
That's it. I'm leaving.
There you go. Just got that on my. Just got that on my watch. Breaking news. More in line with this hearing. Senator, thank you for bringing your presentation. Mr. Chairman, I emailed you the order that the judge issued, and
you know I didn't read it.
No, it's okay. And just hope that the committee will receive that for its hearing. I know it's hearing only today. But Senator, I wanted to read one piece of the order, one sentence, and ask you a question related to it. It says, the parties do not dispute that the enacted map, which is the 2022 map, moved both Black and Latino voters out of districts 1, 4, 5, and 7, and simultaneously increased the percentage of white voters in those same districts. The court finds that this evidence supports that race was the predominant motivating factor behind the enacted map. How does your proposed map differ from that of the 2022 map, which moved both Black and Latino voters out of districts 1, 4, 5, and 7, which is the north side of Cobb County?
Sure. Fair question. The map in 2022 created much more jagged lines here. The 2022 map has this District 3, instead of following this little trace here, kind of juts down and back out. There's a whole lot more happening in the 2022 map that is that the court cites in accomplishing what you're talking about. What this seeks to do is rather than making massive shifts, where 36% of the county is moved, this reduces that to 23%. And it also focuses on compactness. There was obviously not a big focus on compactness in the 2022 maps because those are in the courts, and we're sort of setting that aside with respect to consideration. I didn't want to get folks confused with 3 sets of maps. Those maps are not a basis of comparison for us. Those are things that they were useful for us to understand what not to do. That's why you see what you see here. What you see is you see much more subtle changes here in 3. In fact, when you talk about moving people out of District 3, the total shift of citizens in and out of District 3 is around 3,000 people. It's a very, very tight move. You can even see in District 2 here, relatively modest shift. This is Dobbins Air Force Base. So this is a lot of land, but this is not a lot of people in this area. It's heavily populated on this edge. This is Dobbins. So this shift, you see much more subtle shifts in this map specific for that reason.
I appreciate that, Senator, but the judge specifically said that districts 1, 4, 5, and 7, which you did not mention in your answer right now, were the districts where both Black and Latino voters were moved out. So I'm just asking how if she threw out that map, how does this map comply?
Yeah.
And we were both in special session just a few weeks ago, and one of the things that the sponsor of the previous maps pointed out were the black districts that were drawn and where they were drawn. I'm just asking, the judge pointed out districts where minimal changes were made. I'm asking, where were changes made?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to show you an example. I want to be respectful of the chair's time. Let me show you some statistics. What you see here is on your screen to your left. This is a matrix of total changes across districts. Okay, it's summarized, and then it is we see the breakout, exact amounts, and then percentages. So what you see here is in the 2022 maps that were frowned upon by the courts, for this statistic here, this is any part black. So this is black. This is black who also identifies as Hispanic. You see retention of 71% of the African American population in Cobb County stayed in place, which means 29% shifted. Okay, that's what she's talking about when she makes her order. What you see now is the retention in this map goes from 71% to almost 84%. So you see a significant, if you think, if 29% of African Americans were being moved in the 2022 map, you see in this map just over 16%. So a significant drop in African Americans being moved around the map. And this is broken down by precinct. And that was a very important part of this. You can, in fact, if you look at oops, losing my spreadsheet here. Look, any part black. Any part black was 71%, and in what was, so I mean, that means 29% of people in the 2022 map that was struck down in court were moved around. In this case, in contrast to 29% of any part black moving, again, it's just under 84, so it's 16%. So we moved from moving 29% of African Americans in the county in 2022 in the map that was passed, that was struck down by the courts. We reduced that to 16%. We were laser focused on that issue to be compliant in every way we possibly could. It can't be zero, but we reduced it from 29 to 16.
One last question, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Senator. I won't pick through that answer. I'll move to the last point, which is that the judge raised concerns that the map was not brought through the local legislative process. This is a general bill, which is your prerogative. There were concerns that were voiced by both Republicans and Democrats yesterday about three key points. One was McEachern High School being split from Powder Springs, the splitting of Smyrna, and how Smyrna was split in your map, and then how Wheeler and Walton feeder patterns were drawn in your map. Again, those were concerns that were voiced by Democrats and Republicans. How have you worked to address those concerns, particularly because that's how the local legislative process typically works? You get whoever is part of that delegation together to work through issues, and everyone generally agrees. Given that feedback from bipartisan colleagues, what have you done to change your map?
Yeah. Let me answer the root of your question, which is the use of school attendance zones is a central feature for drawing maps. If we were drawing a map from scratch that wasn't subject to a court order that says we have to maintain certain priorities of not moving things around, we might have drawn a map that was more tied to school attendance zones. One could say that the 2022 map was even more attentive to those kinds of things, maybe not in one area, but certainly in others. Because we're in a place where the judge was very prescriptive about the things we had to address, to address the very serious charge of moving black people around and other minorities around in ways that was seen as unacceptable by the judge, we had to address those issues front and center. We couldn't take secondary and tertiary criteria, which are meaningful, but not essential. We focused on the essentials in this map. That's why I was sharing that with you. One example of that, when you look right here, this is this map shows Sprayberry High School. Okay, Sprayberry High School located right here. Across the street from Sprayberry High School, another district starts. So the Sprayberry attendance zone, which is right here where my cursor is showing, is split in half by this map. Okay? If you go here, Kennesaw Mountain High School, where my son went to school, Kennesaw Mountain High School is right on the seam between District 7 and District 1. This Kennesaw attendance zone is split and carved up by this map. And, I mean, the Kennesaw Mountain High School students will have 2 school board members. They won't have 4, but it's split right along that line. Likewise, as you go to the south, you raise the question of McEachern High School. McEachern High School is not right on the line. McEachern High School is in this attendance zone. McEachern High School, much like many of the other high schools, has their school attendance zone split among 2 districts. And it was raised yesterday in the discussion. But if you look across this plan, you have Campbell High School right here, right on the line. You've got Osborne High School. You have Osborne's right here. Pretty central within the new 2, but in the old line it was split. So Wheeler High School just north of this line. Our goal was to make sure that high schools had, where we could, have no more than 2 school board members. We didn't want 3 or 4. But the idea that we could contain an entire school attendance zone is just not realistic, given the order of the judge.
Thank you, Senator Setzler. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask you to recede, and I'm going to call on a couple of these folks that have signed up to speak. I'm going to try to limit them to 2 or 3 minutes. The first person looks like is Cindy Battles. Is Cindy Battles in the room? If you would, Miss Battles, come in and tell us who you represent.
Let me do this, Mr. Chairman. Let me just shrink this down so we can have it visible. And I will yield.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Cindy Battles, and I am the Policy Director for the Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. I want to talk a little bit, first of all, about the process, because Senator Setzler keeps saying that the deadlines don't work, but the deadlines work if we go through the regular process the way that this is supposed to go through. If it went through the local process the way that many of the local bills went through when they were redistricting during the special session last year, these deadlines would in fact work. Senator Setzler was asked yesterday by Republicans and Democrats if he and Representative Anulowicz could work together to create a map that was agreeable to everyone, and Senator Setzler made it really clear that he was going to continue this process. What that means for our members that live in Cobb County is that they are not being given equal access to the democratic process, because they have elected representatives and senators who will come together and work for them and with them to create school board districts and local districts and that type of thing. I have not had a chance to analyze the bill the way I wish I had, but this is the map that the judge disagrees with. And when I look at that and I look at this, my question is, what analysis has been done, or who did that analysis to guarantee that this map actually does meet Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act? Because a judge, regardless of what anyone in this room thinks about the process or the organizations who brought this forward for the voters of Cobb County, the judge said that this violates the constitutional rights of the people of Cobb County. And if you haven't made significant changes to that, then there's a problem. Given that the fact that the senator is here, I'd love to use the process to ask what functional analysis has been done. How do we have an analysis that his proposal does meet? Because what's going to end up happening if we get whatever process we go through, if it doesn't meet Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, we're going to be here for another special session? And my other question would be, who drew this map? Because he keeps saying we worked really hard. But I know on Monday, we didn't even have an LC for this bill. The LCRO, when we went and asked for the information in the shapefile for Senator Setzler's map, didn't have it. So I have significant questions about the way this is done. I have real concerns about the fact that, and I appreciate Senator Estevez bringing this up, Republicans and Democrats of the Cobb County delegation have raised objections to the way that this is going. So I'm going to ask this committee to not move this forward and let it go through the local resolution in the way that it should go, so that the voters of Cobb County are represented by the folks that they sent up here to represent them.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Battles. Next is, looks like Michael Garza. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Who do you represent, Michael?
Okay, my name is Michael Garza. I don't represent an organization. I'm just here. I'm a resident of Cobb County for over 20 years. I have a daughter who's a first grader that goes to Cobb County schools. This is my daughter. She's going to be governed by this map until she's in high school. I'm also here as a member of the Latino community, community whose constitutional rights were violated with the 2022 map, and who is looking to have those rights restored with this new map. Now, I don't want to get into talking about too much about Senator's map, but I did notice that he mentioned that the movement of Black and Latino voters, but even with this map, I noticed the figure 74%, which means 26% of Hispanic voters were moved in his map. Now, our school district it's a complex district. We have a lot of challenges. We have great educators. My daughter goes to a great school, but we do have some challenges. We have partisan leadership. We have leadership that silences the voices of students, particularly students of color. We've even had an issue of officials who have spied on students who have come to speak at public comment. And so I'm not here to ask you all to solve these issues because you're not really equipped to do so. They talked about the Wheeler feeder patterns. I don't know if I asked any of you to tell me about the Wheeler magnet program, that any of you could tell me about that, because most of you live hundreds of miles away from Cobb County. But I am asking you to allow us to have a voice in being able to solve these issues by being able to fairly elect leaders at the local level. And in this particular bill, there are 3 senators attached to it, and they all represent that northern half of the county, which was specified in the judge's order as being where they bleached the voters in making those districts wider and wider. So yesterday I was in the county delegation meeting. Members of both parties talked about coming together to support a bipartisan map. They asked point blank the senator if he would support that bipartisan measure, and he declined. So I'm asking for this body to just halt the process, to allow for the delegation to come together and to hash out these issues. And because I think that to have 3 senators decide our map from a very small part of the county is not how it should work. Those voters in South Cobb need to have a voice. Those voters in West Cobb, in East Cobb, in Smyrna need to have a voice, and they're not going to have a voice if this map proceeds through this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. Next up is Jennifer Susko. If you would, please tell who you represent.
My name is Jennifer Susko, and I am a post-6 resident, not representing anybody but myself. I went to all Cobb County schools. So I said I am in Cobb County School Board post-6. I think that's where I live. I'd really like to know for sure, though. But some are drawing out this process even longer so that voters in Cobb County remain uninformed and Black and brown voters continue to be denied constitutional voting rights. So I'm here to ask you to oppose the bill because of the incorrect process it's following again, and instead allow local legislators to work together how they should have the first time around. It's incredibly frustrating that we seem to be back where we started, rushing a bill through this way, even after a federal judge has made a clear order about the problems with this process. Our white school board chair excluded and lied to the Black board members to collaborate with some to create maps that have now been proven by a federal court to be racist, by which I mean white people limiting the voting rights of Black and brown voters. And somehow, though there's an order from a judge to move through local delegation, it seems the author of the bill is intent on going down the exact same path, forcing this process. He doesn't consider the judge's ruling to be official, case law, etc. My understanding is that he's wrong on the law and the map will be thrown out again. I'm sure Judge Ross will not be pleased that colleagues and others have said, "Hey there, you're doing it wrong again," especially when her order makes the remedy clear and this bill seems to intentionally go against it. The Cobb County community deserves to know who represents us and who is qualified to run for office. We had to sit through the Earhart's first failed attempt at this, and we shouldn't have to go through it again now with yet another problematic map. I know that what I'm saying will not likely stop the stonewalling by the author of this bill when colleagues offer fair ways to collaborate, but I would like to have it on the record that there have been warnings about knowingly going against Judge Ross's order, and that the Cobb County community is exhausted by the political games played by those terrified of losing power. Thank you to those of you trying to offer our community the leadership we deserve and who understand that this is an urgent matter for Cobb County voters. I'm particularly grateful to those of you who understand the depth of meaning behind these decisions you're in charge of when Black and brown voters are disenfranchised. So thank you for following the judge's order to encourage local collaboration and to repair harm from disenfranchisement by opposing this bill. Thank you.
Excuse me, Ms. Susko, would you answer a question for one of my committee members?
Oh, I didn't know that was part of it.
Yeah.
Wow, they don't do this at the school board. They don't
Yeah,
interact with us. Sorry.
we interact here.
Okay.
Real quick,
If the chair allows it.
if the chair
In
allows.
this case, we're gonna let our whip do that.
I'm curious, you used a word that always perks up my ears.
Was it racist?
Yeah, the judge
That's
said
why
this
I
in the
said-
order.
No, I said that, and then I said by which I mean white people limiting the voting rights of Black and brown voters.
Okay,
And
well,
that's who did it.
that's just a word that gets overused a lot.
That's
And so
why I said what I
if you'll
meant
let me
by it.
finish, please, if you'll let me finish. So it's a word that gets overused in here. The word has an actual meaning,
I'm well aware of it.
as am I. And so when you said it and we're talking about the judge's order and this kind of thing, I was wanting to know, I was going to ask for a reference into the judge's order, but the judge did not use the term racist. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Okay, you answered my question. Thank you.
Sure.
The last on our list is Gabriel Sanchez, I believe. And who do you represent, Mr. Sanchez?
Just myself.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gabriel Sanchez. I'm a candidate. I'm a Democratic candidate for State House 42 in Smyrna, Marietta, and Cumberland. And I'm here today as a Cobb resident, someone who was born and raised in Cobb, and an alumni of Cobb schools, as well as a lot of younger cousins who currently go to Cobb schools. I really am concerned about these maps, and I'm actually, before I ran for office, I've actually worked in redistricting advocacy work since 2021. So I've been pretty involved in the process of the last 3 years. And I just want to say, here we are again. 2 years later, almost every single district in Cobb County, except for the municipal districts, are ruled unconstitutional and have to be changed. Nearly all of those maps were drawn by the Republicans in this body. So this is a problem of your own making. We are here because of the maps that you all drew 2 years ago. You were warned over and over again that these maps were not good, yet steamrolled ahead, bypassing the typical process always done for local legislation by not following the majority of the Cobb delegation and steamrolling your bill ahead. So why should we trust the people who made the maps that led us here to draw the new maps again? This is the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again and thinking we're going to have a different result. Because once again, we're bypassing the Cobb delegation to steamroll this map through because it benefits the Republicans. I would love to give more numbers and analysis on this, but unfortunately, due to the secrecy of this process, I am not able to give you that information. But based on the track record, I don't have a lot of trust that this is actually going in a good way. To me, if there wasn't really a problem with these maps, I'm not then why is the author not willing to work with others to compromise? If there was no problems with the map, I feel like they would be more open to compromising and working together to make a map. But instead, you seem really intent on pushing this map for some reason. This is why I believe we need independent redistricting commissions, because clearly this body is not able to draw their own maps without having to go to litigation every single year and waste taxpayer money and waste all of our time. Because we're in 2024 and we're still dealing with redistricting. This is a shame. This shows just how ridiculous this body is and how unable you are to actually draw fair maps for the people of Georgia. So I plead with you, let's do the process right this time and put Cobb County residents first, not y'all's party, not your own power, the people of Cobb County first, to make fair maps that align with the court order. I would appreciate it. Thank you so much.
At this time, I'll ask the senator to come back up, and because he's asked for a hearing on this bill and trying to comply with the judge's orders and as much as we could. What's your desire, Senator?
Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the committee, I'd love to have a motion to pass and act on this today. I'm glad to address some of the questions that were raised by the people that testified, or I would just leave it to the chair. In a quick blitz through that, just a very quick blitz, Mr. Chairman, the judge set the timeline. We did not. You know, we're not rushing this process. We're simply trying to comply with the court order that said January 10th, and now it's January 22nd. We don't ignore that. It was a substantive core part of the judge's order, and we're operating on that timeline. Myself, Senator Kirkpatrick, and Senator Albers all support acting on this. The member of the Cobb delegation yesterday that raised the question was a House member who declared herself the adult in the room, and she said there needs to, in her opinion, needs to be more dialogue. After 2.5 hours of meetings, myself, Senator Kirkpatrick, and Senator Albers are both resolute. We've put an extraordinary amount of homework into this. I can sit here all night and walk through analysis and data and numbers, how we forensically, piece by piece by piece, complied with the judge's order in developing this map. And just lastly, the falsehood that we're somehow going around the process. Our process in the Senate is very clear. It's very clear. Is if you have a majority of, for example, if we have 4 legislators that sign the map, it goes to the uncontested bills and resolutions calendar. If you don't have 4, it goes to this committee process we're facing today. The premise that we're sidestepping this process is falsehood. It's being flamboyantly shared here by people in this committee hearing. Perhaps, I don't want to speculate, perhaps there was some unclarity about our internal process in the legislature for how bills are moved, but with respect to the Senate, we are following the process. And I appreciate the chairman scheduling a hearing, and I think, again, on behalf of myself, Senator Kirkpatrick and Senator Albers, who are resolutely in support of the homework that's gone into this bill, I would ask for your favorable consideration, Mr. Chairman.
I appreciate your request. One of the things that your request is a little bit late in the fact that we advertise this as a hearing for this bill. Said we didn't advertise it as the bill, that we were going to have a vote on the bill. I don't like to confuse the public, and because we're not going to make the order of the judge to meet that timeline, the hope that you can allow us to hold this, and we'll bring it up to our next committee meeting, and I'll be glad to schedule that as quickly as you and I can get together on timing on that. Are there? I know that Senator Mallow, you have a question.
Chairman, thank you, but I would be happy to yield to the majority whip. It seems that he was eager to go.
Well, he's always eager to go, and it is getting closer to our time to go. So
It's the glasses. Senator, I'm concerned, and it was brought up on a couple of occasions, about the analysis that was used to come up with these maps. So is there an explanation or a roadmap that you can provide to us prior to a committee where we may vote on this or not vote on it, so that all committee members could understand exactly what process was used to determine population and to all of the factors that we normally use when maps are created in this building, using the resources that we have?
Happy to, Mr. Whip. Love to do it in an open process like this. You know, there's been a suggestion by other members that we peel off and sort of huddle in a room and discuss map options. I don't want ex parte meetings where we're meeting, and I want to do it out in the open. We had 2 open meetings about this. It was raised by members of our delegation. Why aren't we getting together and meeting on this? We met for more than an hour on Monday. We met for more than an hour and a half yesterday. Discussed this map in great detail. I'll stay as late tonight as anyone wants to stay and walk through these numbers.
You won't see me be here with you.
So,
Said they,
and again, very, very briefly, we have the compactness numbers here. 4 criteria. We applied 4 criteria of compactness. We've got the voting blocks we maintain. We've got the core retention numbers that I've got in this matrix.
Well, and my point is there's a science to this.
Yes, sir.
And I think everything should be on the table. And so, not saying that you did not follow the science, but I do think the science has to be a part of the discussion so that we ensure that it is transparent and that nobody on this committee is confused as to what science was used.
You betcha.
Thank you.
I'm here.
Well, it seems that after yielding, he wants to come back again. So, Senator Mallow, if you want to address a question, I'll be glad to take it, but let's be quick.
Well, listen, coming up I-16 is not as fast, but I yielded to the majority whip because I knew where he was going to go, and I want to close with these comments, Mr. Chairman. In Chatham County, we have a evenly split delegation, and we had the same issue with maps, but we didn't have to go through a general bill process. And the reason is we did go into a room, and Derek Mallow and Representative Jesse Petrie could find some commonality and some common ground. And I think that could happen, but that requires the political courage and the fortitude to set aside what you come in a meeting with so that we can find a way to find that common ground. And it requires hearing both sides, and if you both are angry when you leave a meeting, then that means the job is done. But to be a member of a delegation and you come and hand someone a map without taking their feedback, that doesn't quite always work so well. And I think this body has the opportunity to set an example that we can do that, and we should try to do that as often as we can, Mr. Chairman. And so with that, I would hope by this time in our next committee meeting that the other 3 senators that represent Cobb could have some agreement and consensus on this situation, and it could be on the consent calendar.
Senator Mallow, your wisdom is so appreciated, and thank you for your comments. At this time, we're not going to take a vote on the bill. I'll be glad to work with you on scheduling a vote on the bill. I do agree that it is one of those things that I think our committee members would like to see a little bit more information. And be glad to work with you on passage of your bill. With no further other business, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much for your attendance.